Winter is one of the two harsh seasons in ROG. This episode is a continuation of the Introduction to Winter episode, and will focus on farming winter-specific items and winter mobs. It's highly recommended that you watch the episodes prior to this one first, especially if you need more basic information about the season. Winter can seem very long, especially if you aren't moving around much and you're just sitting in your base around a warm, cozy fire with a bunch of meatballs. When you have nothing to do, it's best if you try to find something productive to pass the time with. Assuming you're all set in terms of food and warmth, here are some things you should consider. Winter is a good time to farm snowbirds and rabbits because they're mobs that spawn near you over time. Birds are everywhere, and rabbits are everywhere in the savanna biome. When you're warming up near your base or a pit stop, you can farm birds and rabbits for items, making this an efficient use of an otherwise idle time. Snowbirds are a winter mob that drops azure feathers, an ingredient for the blow dart, a powerful weapon that allows you to safely damage enemies at a distance without having to risk taking damage yourself, making them ideal for poking down giants and other strong mobs. Normally, rabbits are just a mediocre source of morsels. However, when your sanity is low, they turn into beardlings and yield different items: monster meat, nightmare fuel, and most importantly, beard hair. Beard hair comes naturally to Wilson, as he just needs to shave to obtain it, but for other characters, killing beardlings is one of the only ways to obtain it. With beard hair, you'll be able to craft the meat effigy, a structure that will revive you upon death. Note that the effigy requires a prestidigitator and lowers your maximum health by 30 as long as it's on the field. Planning around the effigy should begin as early as autumn. If you're constantly exploring and flickering at night, you should have no problem maintaining relatively low sanity. After the initial burst of sanity you get from prototyping, you'll mostly be relying on cactus flesh, jerky, and picking flowers for sanity recovery. Remove those from your survival diet, and you'll have low sanity by the time winter arrives. Keep in mind that killing innocent creatures like birds and rabbits may summon the Krampus if your naughtiness becomes too high. If you don't want to encounter the Krampus, stop farming innocent creatures for a few days when you hear the Krampus' hissing noise. In the meantime, go do something else. You'll recover naughtiness over time. Base building is a fun way to pass the time as well. Work on removing natural turf in favor of man-made turf to prevent eye plants from spawning in your base. Slowly expand your central area with more chests, crockpots, drying racks, and sort your items in a neat fashion however you like. Of course, you're not only restricted to being near your base in winter, wandering around the map can yield great bounties as well. By the time your first winter begins, you should have all the edges of the world fully explored. But the middle areas are likely not filled in yet. Winter's a great time to do this. Choose an unexplored biome, preferably one that has desirable resources, and explore it. While exploring, especially if the biome is big, you can drop a fire pit in a convenient location inside the biome so you can maintain your body temperature while exploring the area. These are just some ideas on what to do in winter, not a complete checklist, since you're free to do whatever you want at your own pace as long as you have food and warmth for sustain. Just remember that in between each farming period, you'll need to have a recovery period near a source of heat. Ice Hounds are a winter mob that sometimes appear in spring as well. Upon death, they release a frost aura that freezes nearby mobs. The aura can also affect the player, but to a lesser degree. When hit, you'll receive a frosty blue effect on your character's sprite. If you're hit by a second aura while your character is still frosty, you'll be frozen for a few seconds. The frost effect does diminish over time, which means that as long as you give yourself time to recover from the frost effect, you won't get frozen. The reason why Ice Hounds are so important is because they have an 100% drop rate on Hound's Teeth, the item required to make the sewing kit, blow darts, and tooth traps. 3 very powerful items that can be extremely useful in long-term survival. While it's possible to strictly obtain teeth from regular hounds on chance, the guaranteed drop rate from Ice Hounds is what makes it so appealing. In general, any way to bypass RNG factors in Don't Starve is welcome, and this is one of them. Ice Hounds also have a 20% chance to drop blue gems. Blue gems are primarily used for the Ice Staff and Chilled Amulet. While these items aren't very important for winter, they do have their uses in other seasons. Blue gems also have another use, making Snow Chester. Having a blue gem in each of Chester's inventory slots on the full moon will transform him into Snow Chester, a mobile ice box that can be very useful for summer survival or long expeditions. MacTusk is a winter mob that spawns from a walrus camp during the day and is one of the most important mobs in the game to hunt. The walrus camp appears as a dent in the ground in every season but winter, when it'll appear as an igloo. Several walrus camps may be generated in your world, usually in a grassland biome, but it can appear in almost every biome. MacTusk is one of the few ranged mobs in the game. When aggroed, it'll let out a howl and chase its target, firing its blow dart. Additionally, it's accompanied by 2 Ice Hounds, forcing you to deal with a ranged attacker that tries to kite you around and 2 melee attackers that chase you. This can be an extremely dangerous mob to deal with if you're not prepared. Before actually engaging in combat, make sure you have proper equipment. As always, having an armor and weapon is a good idea. Because MacTusk has 150 HP, weapons that hit for greater than 50 damage, like a tentacle spike or a fresh handbat, are preferred, as you can quickly finish it off with 3 swift strikes. Finally, make sure you have good body temperature. Place a fire pit near the Walrus camp about 2.5 screens away from it, in the direction you generally approach from. MacTusk can leash onto a target within 2 screens, but it won't fully aggro until it's within attack range. Additionally, it'll never go beyond its 2-screen leash range, so this guarantees your safety. There are quite a few different strategies you can use to deal with MacTusk. This is not a comprehensive list, just a couple of my preferred strategies. MacTusk is an aggro mob that'll hunt down almost anything within its vicinity. You can use this to your advantage by having mobs near MacTusk to act as decoys. Followers like pigs, bunnymen, and spiders if you're playing Weber can be used to directly engage in combat with it, but make sure the followers attack first. You can do this by clicking MacTusk and cancelling your attack animation by moving. The followers will receive the attack command and follow through with it, but yours won't. It's a good idea to remove the Hounds from the fight as soon as possible, but it's not mandatory if they're locked into battle with your followers already. MacTusk will kite the followers in the direction opposite of them, which means you should position yourself in a way that intercepts his movement. Before attacking though, make sure that your character is directly on top of MacTusk, or as close as possible. The reason for this is because MacTusk will try to move away from you the moment it takes damage, so being on top of it guarantees that you can smack it repeatedly, stunning it in place without it slipping away. You can also use stationary tanks like Chester and Lure Plants as decoys. Chester has a large health pool and constantly regenerates, making it a really good tank. Lure Plants don't spawn eye plants in winter, so they're passive tanks that draw MacTusk's aggro. Once the tank of your choosing has MacTusk's attention, proceed the same way as mentioned in the first strategy, preferably killing the Hounds, position to intercept MacTusk, walk on top of it, apply weapon to face until death. The second method, my most preferred method, is to abuse its AI, specifically its leash range. As mentioned earlier, MacTusk will not leave its 2-screen leash range, because it leashes based on distance from the Walrus camp and not whether or not it's interested in you as a target. You can pull it past its leash range and de-aggro it. Once de-aggroed, it'll harmlessly walk back to the Walrus camp. Sometimes it may let out a howl when walking back, but it won't attack you if you do it right. As it's walking back, intercept its path by walking on top of it and smack it to death. An alternative approach to this method is to just chase MacTusk out of his leash range. It sounds crazy, but it works. MacTusk has a minimum attack range, which means that if you're too close, it'll just try to run away from you. Eventually, you'll be able to shove it out of its leash range and forcefully de-aggro it. It's highly recommended that you finish off both Hounds before engaging MacTusk if you use this method. These strategies are generally quite easy to pull off, but may require some practice. If you make an error, chances are MacTusk will start attacking you, which means you're going to have to do some fancy footwork to escape and de-aggro it. Since MacTusk is a ranged attacker, it uses a projectile to deal damage instead of direct contact. That means you'll need to avoid the projectile to avoid damage. The projectile will always fly straight towards your current location when it gets released, which means you have to time your dodge so that your character moves after the projectile is released. Preemptive dodging may work, but can be prone to errors. A good way to dodge is to walk in a straight line until MacTusk fires an attack out. While the projectile is in midair, walk perpendicularly and you should avoid it. This may take some practice. The closer you are to MacTusk, the harder it'll be to dodge due to the blow dart's fast projectile speed. MacTusk drops some of the most coveted loot in the game. It'll always drop 1 blow dart and 1 meat. Blow darts, as mentioned earlier, can be used for safely kiting strong mobs at a distance, and meat is delicious. The Tam O'Shanter is an improved winter hat, providing the same insulation but 5 times as much passive sanity regen. Wearing it may even allow you to regenerate sanity during dusk and night. The Walrus Tusk is used to make the walking cane, an infinite durability dress item for the hand slot that increases your movement speed by 25% while equipped and can also double as a weak weapon. The movement speed allows you to move around faster, making it amazing for exploring and resource gathering. Its infinite durability makes it a decent weapon as well. While only dealing half the damage of a spear, it can still be quite effective in some situations, such as getting the first strike to aggro a mob or smacking butterflies that die in one hit anyway. The Tam O'Shanter and Walrus Tusk drops at 25% and 50% chance respectively. effectively, which means you'll likely have to hunt more than one MacTusk, so learning how to do so effectively is greatly beneficial. MacTusk respawns every 2 to 3 days from when it's killed. Winter is a structured season with its own pacing for items, mobs, and recovery times. Once you have the pacing down, there are so many beneficial things to do in this season that will assist you in your overall survival experience. This concludes the second winter episode. Make sure to check out the other winter episodes and other tutorials by clicking the link in the middle or in the description. As always, thanks for watching, and don't starve.